Welcome to another episode of the Next Chapter podcast. I'm really excited to introduce you to Julie Feldman, the owner of Guys and Gals. I've known Julie for almost probably my entire life. I have vivid memories of shopping in her store, Guys and Gals, when I was younger. And then also getting my prom dress at the store, getting my flower girl dresses at your store, and now coming back when I'm in town with my own mother and my daughter and being able to shop there. So it's wonderful to see how it's gone full circle. So welcome, Julie.
Hi. And excuse, we're in the back room so we don't get interrupted by customers. So excuse my back room.
No, that's okay. I mean, the majority of the conversation will, and the listeners will be listening to it through audio, so they might not even see your background. But that will lead into kind of our conversation and the importance of balance, which we'll get into later in the conversation. But before we can begin, before we can talk about Julie as a working mother, I'd like to kind of go back to the beginning of Julie and what you dreamed of becoming when you were a child.
So I always loved fashion. My mom started this business when I was 11. So that's, I'm young. That's my dream. I don't know if I really wanted to be anything before that. I always loved fashion. One of the things I was teaching or was fashion. I didn't dream of being in the store originally. Originally, I thought, I'd go to New York and do something there. And life changes. I ended up right after college needing some knee surgeries. And then I met my husband. So New York was out. So, but I've always loved fashion. I've always loved dressing. I love dressing other people. I love merchandising. So it's always been a passion. Clothing, magazines, you buy every magazine there is.
100%. I love that. And what's interesting is that you had that influence in your life. When you said when you were 11, you were able to watch your mother work and watch, be a part of fashion from such a young age. And I like to ask my guests what they kind of dreamed of when they were younger, because it's interesting to see if that is woven into their adulthood. And maybe if it's not, and they're at a point of where they feel stuck, that's something interesting to kind of go back to as your childhood dreams. So for you, it sounds like that was obviously woven in.
Right. I didn't grow up. I started working at 11, and these parents trusted me to dress their kids when I was 11, which is amazing. I was able to put people together when I was 11. So it's something that I'm natural at, that I just love. It's just I'm just a natural. I'm a people person. I can talk to anybody. People make fun of me. They say I could talk to a wall and the wall will talk back. That's just who I am. And to be in this business, you have to be a people person.
For sure. And I can say that you definitely are. And when you kind of talk about, a people person and in this business, can you kind of explain a little bit to where you got? So now you're running the business, but let's, step back one step. And you are, you're a mother. Can you tell us how many children you have, and then what brought you from motherhood to working in the business?
Okay, so I have my first husband who passed away, came to the marriage with 2 children, and I gave birth to 2 children. Then I got remarried and he came to the marriage with 2 children. So there's 6 children, but they're all older than my kids. So, and now my baby is 29, he'll be 30 in June. And then I'm feeling old. And then my older one turns 32 this month. Oh my gosh, it's this month, February 14th on Valentine's Day. So, yeah. So lots of children. What was the other part of that question?
No, just kind of the children. And then I want to talk, really focus the conversation on work-life balance. And you're mentioning how you had, children. And as a working mother, I think that it's interesting to have kind of a conversation because I think we all have challenges when we're trying to work, when we're trying to focus on our family, we're trying to focus on our business. And so, can you kind of, before we begin on work life balance, how would you define, how is work life balance defined for you?
So I think it's hard. I think it's a very hard thing, especially if you're in retail. I think retail is one of the hardest jobs you could have with a family. The next one being the hardest would be the restaurant business. It's
Mm-hmm.
a very hard struggle because when it's your business, it doesn't matter what's going on. You still have to work. It's hard to call in. If you don't have enough people, if you're lucky enough that you have enough people to fill in, but if you don't, you don't. It's a very hard. It's a struggle. I have a funeral this weekend of my brother-in-law's father, and I almost wasn't able to go because half my staff is out of town. As it is, it was going to be tomorrow, but it's not till Sunday, so I'm able to go. But if it was tomorrow, I wasn't going to be able to go. So when you're the actual owner of a business, it's very
Mm-hmm.
hard to find a balance. I was always As my kids got older, I felt guilty for all the times I did miss with them. And my friends will say, "Why'd you feel guilty? You're probably a better mother than the ones that stayed home." Because on Wednesdays, my day off, I didn't allow my kids to go other places. They all came to my house, all the kids in the neighborhood, all the kids, my kids' friends. They'll like, it so happens my son's girlfriend um, is actually 2 years older and was my son's nursery school friend. And she used to be, the mother saw me before they started dating saying, "Do you remember when Alyssa used to come to your house every week and she used to bake with you and do these projects with you?" And that's the mother I was. And same with Sundays. Sundays, everybody came to our house, or it was our family day. We didn't go to other people's house. My kids didn't go to other people's houses. That's just the way it is. Nor did they like to go to other people's houses. Everybody always wanted to come to my house. My kids always wanted to stay home with their friends. So, and I was home every night. Now I do canasta. I didn't do Maj or canasta or go work out after work. I would work out in the morning before I took the kids to school really early. Or actually, I would take them to school and then go work out and then go to work. Um, but yeah, and maybe once in a blue moon, like my husband would say, "Go work out," and I would. Or Sunday mornings, I did go work out. My husband was home. I'd go work out early in the morning and get home to spend the day with the kids. So
So
I think it's a hard balance.
it
And
is a hard
a lot of
balance.
mothers, I get that guilt. It's a guilt that, when you're working, whether you be a doctor, a lawyer, you're in retail, restaurant, whatever it is, it is a hard balance. You don't have a lot of flexibility in those types of jobs.
100%. And I think that there's a couple of things to point out. The balance, I think I want to, step back kind of the definition, because a lot of people think balance is 50-50. And when you put that pressure on yourself to give equal attention at any given time, that's a lot of pressure. And so I always like to remind people that you need to think about your kind of seasons in life, seasons in business, and what is happening and how you can kind of shift those priorities. And I know, for you, probably in retail, you have your busy seasons and you have your buying seasons and you have, obviously you're full on and you have to give attention to your business all the time, but there's probably certain times in your business that demand a little bit more attention. And then with a family, our kids always demand our attention at any age, but I think depending on, maybe they're starting a new school or different things. So how did the seasons kind of play into your balance?
So unfortunately, there there wasn't. Um, Now it so happens when I've learned on quiet like times of the year to take off an extra day or extra few hours here or there. I wish I would have done that when my kids were little, and I didn't. I was so like, okay, the store's got to be successful. Da da da. I wish somebody would have told me, "Julie, work 4 days a week," or work, in the summer, don't work 5 days a week. I wish somebody would have told me that. Our quietest time of year is June. So last year I said I was going to take a day off, extra day every year in the summer, and I didn't, but I did take an extra hour here or there. But right now is our quieter time of year, and I have been taking off an extra day. So I do wish somebody would have told me that. That being said, back in the day, there wasn't computers, and I wasn't on the computer all night. I was with my kids. Now I'm on the computer all night. So it's nice to take that extra day because even when it's my day off, I'm on this computer. So
Mhm.
it is nice because literally, like my husband's like, "Okay, you working tonight?" "Yes, I'm working tonight," you know, and he's a workaholic, so he gets it. but it's a hard balance. It is.
It definitely
Seasons.
is.
So
Yeah.
I used to go to New York much more than I go now because with Zoom and stuff, that's made it easier as far as your smaller seasons go. But for your main seasons, I'm in New York. But again, not as much. I'm in New York like next month. One day I come home for a week and I'm there for 5 days. I was in Atlanta this past January. I shouldn't say that, February. We're in February. I keep on forgetting. I'm in New York twice and I was in Atlanta in January. Um, so yeah, those were times I missed out on my kids' activities. I'm fortunate that my family is amazing. Like my mom and dad used to go to all my kids' baseball games. If I couldn't go, they went. I used to get off the plane and go straight to a baseball game. I'd make sure I get home though. If it was a day I was coming home, I didn't take the last flight out when my kids were younger. I'd get home to go to that baseball game. And I did leave work early on the days that my kids had baseball so that I would never miss, I'm saying baseball game, a roller hockey game, a ski meet. So I did leave work early on those days so that I never missed something that my kids were competing in.
Which is important to highlight also, because when you have certain values, like obviously your business is important to you, your family, it sounds like, is very important to you. And trying to that balance that comes in, that you would leave early because family was important, or you would schedule those flights. So it's really being intentional with that. And then I also think the communication piece is huge. So how we talk about work-life balance, but I also think that it's interesting to talk about kind of work-life integration. So how you integrate your family into what it is that you're doing. So how do you integrate your family into the business, or how did you talk to your children and continue to talk to your children about this life that you have, as part of your family, this professional life that you have?
I don't think we ever discussed it. The only discussion I remember is my son wanted me involved in, it wasn't called PTA then, I forgot what it was called. And I told him I wasn't going to take off work or not be with them to go to a PTA meeting. I took off work to be the room mother, because then I'm with you. I'm not going to take off work or take away time from my family to do something that I'm not with you. So I think that was probably the only discussion we had. Um, the hard part is my older son was a little bummed out. I never took off Saturdays to go to U of M football games when they were older, when they were at U of M. When they were younger, I would take off to take them to U of M game, but I didn't take off once they were in college to take off on a Saturday to go to a game. Even parents' weekend, I'd work Saturday and then go up there. So I feel like that was a discussion. He was a little disappointed in that, but I think they also knew I was a single parent. I was working. And life looks different when you're a single parent also, and your goal for succession. I mean, not saying that you want to be less successful if you're not a single parent, but the
Yeah.
money's even more important if you're a single parent
No,
and
definitely. And I think that
affording
that's
those
important.
things that the
Yeah.
kids want to do.
Yeah. No, I think that that's
So there
important to
really
talk
wasn't
about too.
major discussions. Yeah, there wasn't major discussions about it. As far as integrating them into the business, they really weren't. This is not something I would tell my kids I want them to do because I wouldn't want them to do retail.
Mhm.
Um, but like we have a big denim event in the spring. I don't know if you remember it, our jean trade-in,
Yeah.
where they bring in
Yeah.
a pair of jeans. Okay, it's donated to the homeless, and we have this big zipper, and we have all these. So my kids every year were here for years and years and years, from when they were babies all the way up. Like I have a pile of jeans with one of my kids, maybe 3 years old, sitting on the pile of jeans. They used to come here and they used to fill in the zipper and they used to collect the jeans and, count them up for whoever was out there. Different ages brought different, things to do. And then when I was so busy, I needed help behind the counter. As they got older, I stuck them behind the counter for jean trade in. Other than that, no,
No, but
there
it
was
does
nothing
sound
they
like
did
that.
with the
It,
business.
it maybe not as far as like actually working, but they understood that you had important things that needed to be done. They understood that when you were taking off, that it was at certain times. And so I think that that's important to highlight. And then you talked about success, and I think that that's something that is interesting also to highlight, that throughout our life, success, our definition of success can change. And so you mentioned when you were, a single mother and working, and maybe you had one definition of success and now it may have changed. Can you kind of speak a little bit more to that?
So for me, success has always been success. Excuse me. It's my business. So now success, I- everybody has their thing. Like I'm obsessions. Okay. So this is my obsession now. And I am obsessed in making this store very successful. We have a website now. I want the website to be successful. Um, it's my business, and I don't have the kids at home. But again, I am trying to balance my life by taking an extra day off right now. And then when it's a busier season, taking off an hour early on one day so I could play pickleball with a whole group of couples, and coming in an hour late so I could play pickleball with a group of girls so I can enjoy me at 58 years old, that I can enjoy life and it's just not all about working. Because again, I do work all night too, which is the problem. I work with these computers and with social media. Within it's just become a 24-hour job with the
Mm-hmm.
website, all those things. I mean, people, ask you questions when you're on vacation from your website. Well, they don't know you're on vacation. They don't know we're a small store. You have to answer those questions.
Yeah, well, that goes into, I guess, kind of my next question as far as boundaries, because with social media, running a business on your own, it can be really challenging. So the idea is kind of what type of boundaries do you set up for yourself? You mentioned how you try to take a day off or you come in a little bit later or leave a little early, but what other types of boundaries are you instilling now, and kind of maybe going back to the beginning, and what kind of boundaries did you have, or maybe you're still working on?
I still need to work on boundaries. I'm bad at boundaries. So since COVID, literally every customer has my cell phone number. Plus, I use my cell phone now for texting customers when things come in because they read text, they don't listen to phone messages, or when their special order comes in, or this and that. So customers have no boundaries, and I'm fine with them. I'm not complaining. They're very loyal customers, but they will text me during vacation. They will text me at night. They will text me early in the morning. So I'm hard with boundaries. I'm not good about boundaries. That is not one of my qualities.
Well, your quality is that you recognize that that's something that you're still working on. So that's important too, to
Right.
even recognize that that's something that you're working on. But it sounds like you're still trying to take, some time for yourself. And speaking of time for yourself, what how do you define self care? And then, what does it look like for you now? And then I also think it's important to talk about kind of what it looked like maybe for you, when your kids were a little bit younger. Like, has it changed?
So when my kids were younger, I was actually better at working, and I enjoy working out. I worked out probably almost every day when my kids were younger. Somehow I was able to fit it in. Now it's getting out to the pickleball courts. And when my kids were younger, we also spending time with my family and my kids. That was important to me. So that's self care.
Mm-hmm.
We made sure, my husband and I, we took 2 weeks with the kids in the summer before they went to camp. I never let them go to camp all summer until they got a little, like, Lee was at Tamaqua when it was the 15-day canoe trip. He's like, Mom, it's time I go to camp all summer because I'm missing half the summer. I'm like, okay, it's time.
Right.
But I think it was 15 years old, because we did like to take the kids away for 2 weeks in the summer and just be our family before then. And we didn't even go with any other families. We wanted it just to be us and to spend quality time with us. I remember one time we were in Vegas with the kids. It was a big road trip. It was California. We flew to California, but then it was California, Palm Desert, Vegas. And Vegas, my kids wanted to go in there was like a play thing, they go
Yeah.
in and play in it. We wouldn't let them. We wanted them with us. We're like, no, we're going to the pool with you. You're coming with us. My first husband was the same way. He always wanted to be with the kids. Um, and then we took a vacation in the winter with the kids too. Now it's trying to go away too. My husband used to be a worse workaholic than I was. We never even went away in December.
Mm-hmm.
That changed a while ago, like 10 years ago. I'm like, I'm done. We're going away. So we started going away for a week in December with the kids. Then it turned to 10 days. Then it turned to 2 weeks. So we go in 2 weeks. Lately, and I would have never done this years ago, we close a few weeks in December because I don't have enough help. I would have never done that. If you would have asked me 4 years ago, I would have never done that. Also, We usually go away maybe a week in the summer. Last year we couldn't because I had no help in the store, not enough help. So, it's that based on that. This year we're taking 2 vacations. March, we're going to Florida to visit my son and my parents and everybody. But we are going finally, this is an Italy trip planned before COVID, and we couldn't make time to go do it. I took myself off the calendar. My employees they're going to have to step up. I am taking that time off. So,
Yeah. So I love that though. And it does. I know you said you're working on boundaries, but that does sound like a boundary that now you recognize
right,
that
it is.
this time is important for you and that you're taking that
Right.
and that you're hoping and you're that other people kind of step up. And so I think also what is important to highlight is kind of a support system or the help that you need. So, can you talk a little bit about that? I know you mentioned when you were traveling that your parents would go to the games and things like that, but how has help support system played a role?
Well, now or back then? Now I don't need the
Both.
health support system except for employees, but that's a tough
Yeah.
thing. Employees are tough right now. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
nationwide problem right now.
Yeah.
So, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, for sure.
I never had an
Because
issue with taking off time like I do now.
but then kind of just when your kids were a little bit younger, the support system that you had to build in order to be able to show up at the store.
Okay, so my husband was incredible. He loved kids. He said if he could retire, he would open up a camp. So if when I used to work every Thursday night and I used to work every Saturday, and there was a time I was working Saturdays and Sundays. So Jeff was incredible. He was with the kids. That was
Mhm.
like he was with the kids. We did have sitters, we did have a nanny, but the nanny when we were with our kids, the nanny was not with us. So like Jeff used to take the kids to Coney Island so funny on Thursday nights, and the people would go up to him and say, "Oh, are you divorced? Or are you that?" And he's like, "No." And he's like, "You're with the kids?" Like, of course, they're my kids.
Right.
So he was amazing. He was an amazing father. Um, I think that's more now too. I think back then things were different. But Jeff was an incredible, incredible father and always wanted to be with the kids. And like I said, if I worked every Saturday, he was with the kids. If I worked, there was a year that I was working Sundays too. He was with the kids. Thursday nights, I worked every Thursday night for years. He was with the kids. Um, and then when after Jeff passed away, like when I went to New York, it used to be my mom and I would go to New York together, but then I would just go and she would stay with the kids because somebody had to be with the kids. And
Right.
I was better at going to New York than her at that point. So she would stay with the kids and I would go to New York.
Well, that's what they say. It takes a
And then I would take my
village.
kids with me for vacation. Right. And as far as vacation, I took my kids with me. I never did a vacation by myself once Jeff was gone. Even when Jeff was alive, we would take a weekend here or there and we took 2 main vacations by ourselves. Other than that, we always wanted to be with the kids.
Right, because again, it goes back to that balance. Maybe at the moment it wasn't like a 50-50, but that was important to you to be able to be with the kids
Right.
and you create the time with them when you had it.
Right.
And so,
And if I didn't work full time, I understand people taking vacations because I do think adults need alone time. And that's why we would always take at least a weekend or 2 by ourselves. But because I did work full time, I wanted to be with the kids. So if you don't, I mean, I get like you need time away from your kids. I do get that. I'm not diminishing those people that take away, go on vacations by themselves because I think that's important too in a marriage. Just for me, because I worked so much, that was important to me to be on vacation with my kids.
well, I appreciate you highlighting that because I think also, we touched on mom guilt and I want to talk about it a little bit more. I think some of the guilt also comes from the judgment or the fear of judgment from others and the idea that nobody really knows what someone's circumstances are, what someone's priorities are, what their life looks like, at home, at work, and how they are trying to manage their own balance. And so I think that judgment piece needs to, can be a challenge. So, can we talk a little bit more about mom
So
guilt or kind of, yeah.
yeah, I wasn't worried about judgment. That was not my thing. And I don't know if I had so much guilt. I did have guilt at the time, but it was once my kids grew up, I had even more guilt. It was like, oh, I wish, because I think I was just so, I loved when my kids were little. I loved when they jumped in bed with me. I loved them being dependent on me. At the time when they're saying, "Mom, mom, 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 mom," I'm like, "Okay, dad, 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 dad." But I loved every moment of every I loved baby, I loved toddler. There wasn't a moment I didn't love. I hated once they didn't depend on me is when I hated it. So that was the guilt. Like I wish I had more. And that's when my friends are like, Julie, you spend more time with your kids than a lot of parents do that don't work full time. So that's where the guilt comes in, is that I wish I had more time with my kids when they were little and that I didn't have to work so much. That's where that guilt is. It's not, I didn't care what other people thought of me. I don't think anybody thought negative of me working full time, honestly. I don't think they thought twice about it.
Yeah, no, I wasn't necessarily saying about you. I think just in general, sometimes there people can fear judgment, but I appreciate that you weren't,
Yeah,
in a position where you were judged. But that is sometimes when we reflect on that, guilt comes in when we're starting to reflect that we kind of wish that we had that extra time.
more
So kind of,
time. Time
yes,
goes
more
by
time.
fast. It goes by really fast. And it's like you got to hold on to every minute.
Yes, you do. And be intentional with your time because we all have that same 24 hours. And it's how are you going to prioritize that? And like we said at the beginning of the conversation, there are seasons and how you prioritize that time is going to change. And so, kind of as we are nearing
Right.
the end of the conversation, I always like to ask my guests if there's any kind of golden nugget, lesson learned, or something that you want to share with the guests that they can kind of carry forward with them.
I think basically everything I've been saying is that I wish that when I was younger, I would have taken maybe an extra day or an extra half day, or not even when my kids were younger, like when they were younger. When they got to a certain age, actually, like I said, I left work all the time to go to their baseball games and stuff. So I was with them after school after a certain age. As I got older in college or even after college, I didn't like my son was in Chicago. His first year he was in Chicago. I went to visit him only once. Like at that point, I should have taken off more weekends and say, you know what, the money's not that important, or so the store won't take in as much money, or my employees will just have to deal with being busy without me, and gone to see him more in Chicago. Um, Once he moved to DC, I'd go twice a year. It was a little harder. And then Seattle twice a year. Now it's like I go twice a year to see him, but he's further away. Chicago's close, but
Yeah.
it's still hard. Even my other son that's in Chicago right now, I don't go that often. But that's also his schedule. He's resident, but it's hard. It's hard to get away. I have two kids out of state, so it's hard. But my recommendation: don't go into retail. Where you have to work every Saturday and sometimes Sundays. Don't do retail.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
that's my recommendation.
Well, no, I really appreciate that. I appreciate your honesty and I appreciate your ability to kind of reflect and to share the things that you've learned, because that is the point of this community, is to hopefully inspire other mothers, help us kind of know that we're not alone in some of our feelings, and also to provide comfort to each other. So I really appreciate you being a part of our community. And I will definitely share in the show notes how people can get in touch with you, the guys and gals. I know we had a entire conversation on Instagram Live, so you can follow both of us on
Right. That
Instagram
was
Live.
fun. Right.
Yes, all about the staples that every mother should have in their closet. And thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share.
I appreciate it.